Cool.
Okay, I'm Aaron Covington here with upcoming young writer, director, creator, Tajianna Okechukwu, and class is in session. Okay, Tajianna, I actually was thinking about our conversation that we're going to have here,
Hmm.
and I was like, this is interesting because I don't know if you even need a lot of help right now.
I
How old
feel
are
like I
you?
need so much help.
How old are you, if you
Uh,
don't mind? You're
I'm
pretty young,
28 now. I'm
28.
28. I met you when I want to say when I was like 21, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah, like right
I think it was either my
like your
junior or
last year of
senior
college
year.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So it was like I was like, oh, I think, you're just on a natural progression
Awesome. Great.
right now. You know what I mean? Like from what we
Hmm.
talked about before, you have you're getting into making some shorts and you've had some success with your short films, like in contests and things, and you're getting up to make them, and that's really your natural progression, I think. And the next step would be after your short films, you finish with them and ideally, and I definitely want that to happen for you where they play in some festivals and they do well.
Right.
And somebody's gonna say, well, what do you want to do next?
Right.
What's your feature idea? What's your even your TV idea, even though that'll still be tough, it'll be that's a
Yeah.
different road, but it's still a very natural progression for you. So
Sure.
I'm interested to see like, yeah, what kind of questions you have, and we'll talk about this. I read two of the shorts.
Hmm.
We'll talk about them a little bit, but I even felt like they were pretty clear in like I think your voice and what you're trying to convey in them. And I was just like, oh yeah, you just got to go out and shoot and
You're like, so you're ready. No, I
and
think that's so
yeah, it's
good.
like you have to shoot and learn from the process and see what comes out of it, and then it's almost like where I'm like, I don't want to say something that's gonna put you more in your head. That might, you know what I mean, slow up your
Appreciate
progress.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's real. I think I guess my one of my main questions is now that I'm, like you said, I'm on the horse, I'm gearing up for these things. The trajectory from writing and shooting shorts versus features is obviously it's a all storytelling, but it's longer format. So I guess I'm curious on if you have any tips or things that we should be looking for when it comes to writing for short form versus the longer form, things where it's like, okay, like a short film, you got to get in and out of the story quicker versus a feature, especially if you've never written a feature before. Like, what should you be gearing up to do differently than what you've been doing when writing short films?
Um, I think with the feature, you have your idea, your basic premise and where you want to start,
Hmm.
and you're working to your ending. You come up with what your ending is really before you get in the script, like when you're still outlining and figuring it out, and then just understanding the basic movie structure. And I think that is very daunting for people because they're like, oh, there's a movie structure. I have to learn that movie structure. But it's not really like that. You can read, for example, I'm not even suggesting to do this, but if you read a dozen books that talked about movie structure, whether it's screenwriting books or just some general storytelling things, like you would disseminate all that information into how you view stories. Now, some things are
Right.
similar, like you're writing, maybe a three-act structure. The movie has a beginning and an end, which means it definitely is gonna have a middle, and the midpoint has to do something specific, but it varies. Like there's a lot of variances for how things can go. So it's not like a strict structure. It's just like, you introduce your premise, your inciting incident,
Hmm.
then you introduce the problem. The end of act one is like, okay, now we're getting into what my lead actually has to do.
Right.
to attain their goal, basically, on the most basic level. You get to the midpoint where it's like a victory or a success, but it's like a public outing of what they're trying to do, where now that affects their relationships.
Yeah.
And you have your into act two, which is usually it seems like they're not gonna solve their goal and they're gonna ruin their relationships, like things are falling apart. And then
Yeah.
you have your climax of the ending where they succeed or fail.
Right.
And that like really basic kind of universal structure is, works for
It's like the
most.
bread and butter.
Yeah, works for most stories. But the pacing of it and how it comes together is your understanding of story. And that's where your like
Mm,
unique feel for story can come into play. And when you watch movies, you start paying attention to it.
right.
And if you just kept like a clock, right? My movie starts at 10, it ends
Yeah.
at 12. So I know the midpoint is going to be at 11, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Just by definition. So then you can use that to see like, okay, what happened at a half hour in on this movie? It seemed like they were still kind of slow. When you go to another movie and like, oh, a half hour in, these things were moving like crazy. And that's where different directors' sense of story are coming out once you start comparing movies against what you know about structure. And you kind of devise your own theory and your own, you know, everybody could kind of write their own pamphlet about what movie structure is, and they'd be different enough to be relevant.
Right. That makes sense. I like that in terms of like there's a basic structure to follow, but the fill-in is like your, as you said, your understanding of story, which I think is
Yeah. I do liken
really,
it to sports, right? Like coaching, like basketball, for instance. Or any sport, it's a simple, sports are simple, but when you
yeah.
watch, each team has its own strategy within the rules. So there's the basic rules of like basketball, but this coach plays fast, you know what I mean? And this coach plays slow and, passing the ball a lot. And so that's kind of a way to visualize the metaphor.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I also used to play sports, so
Okay,
that works.
great. Yeah, it makes it easy to
Well, I
understand.
ran track and played basketball. But yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I had something else. Um, do you believe I've kind of questioned about this before with folks. What is your thoughts on like writing schedule? Like I think it can get very like we can overthink it and it can be a meticulous thing of like, yeah, you should be writing every day, but like how that looks and when it is, I think folks can maybe try to look up to people who they like aspire to and try to like mimic a schedule that maybe it's not working for you or maybe writing every day doesn't work for you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm curious about like what you think of like the infamous writing schedule.
I think it's good early on. When I say early, I just mean when you're trying to develop the discipline and trying to understand what that means, to try
Mm,
to write every day if that's within your the realm of possibility, given whatever your life is.
mhm.
But it doesn't necessarily come down to that. Consistency can mean a lot of different things. Um, and consistency is the key, but it doesn't have to be every day like a hard and fast rule, like a dictator. Like you have to do this every day. It can be every other day. It
Mm.
could be every, you know, I write Mondays and I write Fridays. That's when I have time,
Yeah.
as
Hmm.
long as you're
During the
not
hmm.
just, stepping completely away from it. It's been a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks
Yeah.
away from it now. And then writing can take different forms too, is what, a lot of people agree on. And I agree on this too. Sometimes writing isn't actually sitting down and writing, but it's like if you're focusing your mental energy on actually like breaking down your story or thinking through some scenes, then you're really doing the work. You have to get that on the page at some point, but sometimes writing is more of a thought exercise, even than
Oh,
writing.
hard. Yeah.
You just can't get lost in thinking about it and thinking that's what you're doing in writing. That can suffice for, a couple of times. It can't be
Mhm.
all the time, but sometimes it's just, yeah, thinking through the problems and then sometimes it's jotting ideas on a notebook, on a little notebook, or like your phone even. It's
Yeah.
not always like sitting in front of the computer and because you have
It's
to
not always final draft, right?
not always
It's like
it's
not
definitely not
always.
always a final draft, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's jotting ideas, I'll open up text edit, not even Word,
Oh,
like the simplest app just to
yeah.
be like, okay, I gotta get these ideas.
Yeah.
I gotta try to organize these thoughts into something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I definitely have so many like notes in my phone, my iNotes. It's
Yeah.
just like stuff. That's how I came up with the concept for heritage was like in my phone notes. I like one day I wrote down, I think I maybe was in an Uber and I just was like talking to the driver and it's like, "Oh, where are you from?" It's like, "Oh, you're from Nigeria." I'm like, "Oh yeah, my dad's from Nigeria." They're like, "Oh, my sister, like have you been?" And like once I've had so many Nigerian like Uber drivers, I
Hmm.
was like, just had a one line in my notes was like Uber drives off freeway something. And then like
Hmm.
I left it alone and then I came back to it like a year later and I was like, yo, like I can't get this out of my brain. So then it started from there being like this surrealist discovery to, find myself. But I think I
100%.
did
That's
so
exactly
good.
how it can happen too. Like,
Yeah, it was so random. But I'm happy I went back through those notes because
yeah,
otherwise I would have, there's a lot of tracking. Your brain can only hold so much, so you need the supports, in place. So I'm happy about that.
100%. I've been trimming down my notes lately. I had like 800 notes. And
Oh God.
some of them are like grocery lists and stuff. It's just all kind of things. I'm like, I
Oh.
just never
Oh yeah,
deleted them.
yeah,
But
random stuff.
I'm finding some gems in there, or I feel like it. I'm like, oh man, I got to remember this line, or what project was this
Yeah.
for? I got to go back, or yeah,
Yeah. I like writing down like when somebody says, especially when they say something funny or something witty, I love writing that down. So I think
mm,
like I'm trying to get better around writing dialogue. So I think I'm
love
really
it.
bad at people watching, but I have a really like curious ear. So when somebody says something, whether I'm in conversation or I'm like ear hustling, and they say something that's funny or something that's like that I feel like is profound or it's witty or something like that, I try to like jot it down. I need to do that more, but yeah, I think it's
No,
interesting.
that's a good practice to keep.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let's talk about your shorts just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I read Fillmore and 2%. I skimmed through
Hmm.
Heritage. I didn't get to read all of it.
Oh, good.
Um, let's look at Filmo first.
Hmm.
Where did you get the idea for this?
Good question. This idea came from I was sitting in my aunt's house. It was 2020. And I think I was trying to figure out what to do with all of my anger, confusion, frustration around all of the racial instances. And I had also made a very like satirical comedic thing in college about like workplace discrimination and what it's like to like have a ethnic name on paper and not get a job and
Hmm.
somebody being like, well, what if I change my resume to be like Joe Smith or something and then he ends up getting the job and so it's this whole commentary about that. And so I think I wanted to like continue building a body of work that kind of shows my voice in the like social commentary lane.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I was like, okay, I came up with a short story and based it like, I was like, oh, Harlem Renaissance. I really want to dive into knowing more about that era. And I was like rewatching Jim Carrey's The Mask, and I was like, what if like we explored like blackface and like minstrelsy, but like I've heard people say it on social media all the time, like, well, what if they couldn't take it off? Like,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be,
The
they
makeup.
couldn't stand being stuck like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that was kind of how it came to me, and I was like, this is an interesting idea and very like out there. So I was like, let me just honor the tug in my gut and write something.
And I think it works as a short. You start with this black couple who are in town. They just got engaged
Hmm.
and they're in town or they're going to a show in town.
Hmm.
And that is that they're not aware that it's a minstrel show.
Right. And
They,
that's something I need to play around with too, is like the structure of the scenes, but it's supposed to be like happenstance to where their friend is like, "Oh, I got you guys t like
yeah.
I got you guys tickets or you have this invite to like this show." And they go and they're thinking that it's just a whatever normal comedy show because this is like just right at the precipice of like integration during that time. So it's like still like segregated in terms of like certain areas, but it's like we're all in the same space together. So they don't know that it's a
Hmm.
minstrel show until they get there.
Yeah.
Is something that I thought was interesting. But
No, I think that was interesting. The only like, yeah, they
yeah.
get to the show, then we cut to the performers getting ready. They're putting on the blackface,
Hmm.
and then we cut back to the couple at the theater, and it's like mostly a white crowd, but they're sitting next to a black lady who's
Hmm.
excited about the show.
Yeah.
But the wife especially is getting like a weird feeling that this is not a show that they really want to be at.
Yeah.
Basically, then the performers come out and they're in blackface, and the couple is like, "Oops, we don't want to
Yeah.
be here."
Yeah.
But one of the performers has already started showing sign. He's kind of say he wasn't feeling well. He wasn't
Right.
feeling well. His nose bleeds on stage,
Hmm.
and when he goes to clean up the nose with a handkerchief, like the makeup doesn't move.
Hmm.
Speaking to your point, he can't change it. So then, okay, here's the question I had.
Yeah,
The
please.
wife takes a picture.
Hmm.
Does that spark the change, or is that just something she does?
No, that does spark the change. I actually have written a new iteration since we've last
Okay,
talked.
okay, yeah. Tell me
Yeah, it
about it.
definitely is like I wanted to play with and I know it's a motif. It's a thing that's been done commonly.
Hmm.
And so I was curious about the camera as like the capturing the moment because it's going to resurface later of like the moment's been captured, you can't hide. So the picture kind of stuns you and, creates that effect. And it's also the music, the music, because I feel like music is just such a huge part of our culture. And so I
Okay.
wanted it to be a device to kind of heal.
Was him being sick part of it
Hmm.
too? Like, did he need to be
Yes.
sick and have his picture taken to
Oh,
necessitate the change?
no, I think I was just trying to, and you let me know. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to get in to like the villain starts to show signs of
Yeah,
like weakness. I was trying to figure out how not to just like, okay, a picture happens and then you can't take it off and then you turn into a monster. I was trying to figure out a way for him to be like something's off.
yeah.
Um, oh, I have a headache because, we match cut before and he said this one line. So I was trying to figure out how to play with like introducing that
Only
something is
because his bandmates aren't sick,
right.
or but
They
they
don't have
also
to be
change,
right. Because Johnny is the one who has the racial encounter with Robert,
right?
where
At the
he's the
beginning.
one who kicks over his, instrument and then it goes into the street. And I think because he was the enabler of of that
Yeah.
interaction, it kind of is like, all right, well now you're on this path to where
Okay. I
you're
think
gonna
for a short, it's really, really, really fine.
Mhm.
Um, in a feature, there'd be questions. People would have more questions, and you'd have time to answer them.
Yeah.
But it was fine it's like reading in the short. I wasn't like, oh, this doesn't work because I don't understand that. It was just like, oh shit.
Do you think that in shorts, yeah, like how much should we, leave up to the audience? Like how much does need to be answered versus not? Is there like a way to kind of gauge like,
I,
oh, I'm not really hitting the points here, or is it like, oh, it's a short, let's leave it kind of, open.
I think because him like his nose bleeding and him not being able to wipe off the makeup,
Mhm.
like it's clear why that's there from a story perspective. That he can't get it off. And we need those lines from somebody for him to say that, I can't get it off. Like that
Mhm.
is clearly like very important. So
Mhm.
I think in this case, it's the right amount of information versus withholding.
Okay,
Yeah, because
got
it
it.
all is important to this story.
Mhm.
and not the greater mythology of this story or the world. And we don't need all that. We don't just don't have time for all that in the short.
Right. Okay. That was what I was concerned about when I've been like writing it in the residency and all this other stuff was like how much of this needs to be justified because it's such a huge idea and it's such a sensitive topic that how can I play with it while also being like people aren't hecka confused, but also leave it
I
up to
mean,
your, so
the only thing I could think that you could really like add is like when they're putting it on the makeup, and maybe it's actually in there, but
okay.
somebody just had a comment about like something about it that night is different than other nights,
Yes.
you know?
This is came up before.
Yeah.
This has came up before. That's
Uh,
I'm need to work on that.
Even if
Mm.
one of the guys was like, it's hot out there tonight, make sure you put on extra so it doesn't run. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said that before?
No, no, not that
Yeah.
specifically, but the note about like, and I think that's always with horror, just like what about tonight is different than any other normal night.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's fair.
And then, okay, so they turn into monsters for anybody listening. Like, what was the change? They became black? Well, they actually became like crazy monsters who were subdued by the music. He had his trumpet.
Yeah.
The black guy had his trumpet the whole time. So he played that and that helped them subdue the monsters. So then I just didn't know why the rest of the story was here
Yeah.
after that.
That's why I changed the order because it didn't make sense anymore. And I got that feedback around like, hey, why? I think in the draft I sent you, the juke joint scene is at the end.
Yeah.
Um, and so originally it's in the beginning and it's this beautiful intro to Noreen and Robert. And I think sometimes I think your first thought is correct. And I think I overthought it and I got feedback and then I did switch and like all this other stuff, which I think I needed to do just to
Mhm.
play. But I want to send you the new draft anyway. But I think opening it up with the juke joint as I've kind of
But
had in previous
why do you
drafts,
need the juke joint at all? What really
it just
happens
was
at the juke joint?
nothing. I mean, it's just introducing Robert and Noreen, introducing the culture, introducing the community and the neighborhood that they're in. But it can change. It's
I
not like a huge thing,
if I was
you
like
know.
giving notes on this or like talking to you, it was like there's no really drama in there. Nothing really happens. I don't
Hmm.
even know that you need it, especially if you're like
Yeah.
shooting short.
Okay.
That's just money, you know.
Yeah. Heard.
But you
Okay.
can keep the final scene that we jump to 2000, and she gets the picture. She finds the pictures, right? Oh, she finds a camera.
Mm-hmm. In a thrift store, vintage thrift store.
Yeah, there's something interesting about that. As like
Hmm.
something's going to continue on. Something about this is like everlasting.
Yeah.
The juke joint is, yeah, it could be a nice scene in a longer movie to be like,
Hmm.
this couple got engaged, these are their people, but even then you would still want like something, especially if this is kind of horror just because it's a monster.
Yeah.
Just something underlying it that would be like something spooky in the air, you know?
It gets into the
Yeah,
horror quicker. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. I like that note. Thank you.
yeah.
Um, I definitely implement that for sure. But yeah, definitely what's different about tonight. I do think, yeah, I mean, I do love to thrift, but I also was like, that was my hope was that folks could see it as like something that could be explored for longer because Nadia we in the feature my hope is that um she is the main character that is kind of now the bearer of all of these complex things
Mm. So
dealing
in the
with
feature, the past is almost like the
is
intro.
a small yeah the
Yeah.
past is like a flashback and like the present is like we're talking about frat dudes, current day blackface, Halloween parties, where the
Ah,
present as like a thing and how the past is sort of manifested in itself.
oh, okay, I
Um,
see.
yeah. So
I see. Yeah.
supposed to be like a setup to pique interest to be like, oh, well, what would happen next? And then build out the feature.
Oh no,
But
that'd be a dope. Yeah, that's dope. That's really interesting. So yeah, that was cool. That was cool. That was good. That was good. That was great. And good writing and good pacing
thank
on
you.
all of that. And then it was kind of the same with 2% where the girl gets stuck in a car
Yeah.
And then the car GPS is basically narrating her own anxiety.
Hmm.
She crawled out the back seat,
Hmm.
and this lady helps her.
Let me pull up my
Uh,
notes. Because yeah, 2% is crazy. I mean, it's based on what actually happened to me getting stuck in my car for like 60 seconds. But yeah, it's yeah, I'm like,
I
we're
didn't really
shooting this.
have anything to say about this one. This one also seems easy to shoot, you know? But I
Yeah,
think it
we're
would just be a
ready.
good, it is a good exercise, I think, for you and your,
Yeah.
whoever your team is, because the card gives you a bit of production challenge to figure out how to make those shots interesting. Um, it's not like, I mean, I think I did feel a bit of like anxiety and tension when she was stuck in the car at a point.
Hmm.
And then you wonder if the GPS is like doing something to her or going to do something to her. And it's fine that it doesn't and she gets out. This is more
Hmm.
like psychological than literal.
Hmm.
Um,
I like that as a question though, if it does something to her
when
outside of.
she goes with the Good Samaritan, that's a little not easy, but it's like
Yeah, I'm
I kind
not
of
in
want to
love
sum
with
up.
it.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm agreeing with you.
I kind of wanted it to sum up her struggle a bit in action, like because there's a line or the GPS says assistance required. User has survived despite inefficiencies. Assistance required for completion. So almost
Maybe
something where
she
she's like
ever.
not going to like allow this lady to help her at first because she's so
Yeah,
embarrassed or so frazzled. And then
yeah,
she then decides to ask for help, or finally it's like, because right now when she gets in the roadside store, the first thing she does is ask for help.
hmm,
I almost want her to be like, not do that at first and like take a second and then be like, kind of
yeah,
relax and ask for help. Well, that's how I
yeah.
just felt reading it.
No, that's a great note. I think that's the whole point is like, yeah, she struggles asking for help. When we have, a hard time asking for help, it isn't the first thought, it's not the first action. So I do think that
Yeah,
that's fair. It also has me wondering maybe that the Good Samaritan discovers her and then she's like resisting the help at first. And
yeah.
maybe she's not seeking out help. She was going to walk the whole rest of the way. I don't know.
Because
So definitely.
you 100% you meaning anybody. It's like when it's hard, you're a person that's hard to ask for help. It's like you're running all these machinations in your mind. Like if I do this, then I can do this. If I can do this, or if I do this, and I'll do this, and it's like, or you could just ask somebody, and you're like, no, 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 I'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So if we could like see her like calculating in her mind how
Hmm.
she can figure it out, or she's like goes into the store and she's like asks the guy working, "Do you have a charger?"
Yeah.
It's like if I can just get charged, I can figure all this out. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're in too deep. You know,
Uh,
you need to start over or just go home or give up or something. But what you're trying to do is not
yeah.
gonna work.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So yeah, these are real good. I mean, Fillmore is tough to shoot from when you
Crazy.
with the monsters and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not
Talking to
impossible.
friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just have to figure out how you want it to look and how you can pull it off. Um, and a good
Yeah,
DP who can make the lighting interesting.
for
Maybe
sure.
hide some things if it's practical, or maybe some people that do visual effects, I don't know.
Yeah. I talked to a friend who's done some monster stuff here in the Bay about, you know, VFX stuff. So I'm intrigued to like be more immersed in it and like learn it because it'll be necessary. But yeah, I definitely I think it's a fair point in terms of removing the juke joint because if it doesn't push you know, it's not like so relevant to the story where it will cut down,
Yeah.
the bandwidth. So yeah. And
Um,
this one is more so like us with the water rig and trying to figure out how to control the rain and like
oh yeah, I was reading that like, oof, that's hard to do, but
it's gonna be so fun. I'm excited. I'm like film school again. But no,
yeah,
I think it's
100%.
good. Yeah, it's gonna
And
be
a,
good.
and there's a lot of ways to hide rain, and you do close-up shots, you don't need rain. You don't need a downpour, you just need rain and like just in the background of this shot right here, you can use a hose or something. And
Yes.
then
We'll get some PV.
the sound can
Yeah,
do a lot for you, or just having like water spots on the glass where it's like, oh, it's all misty and watery.
but
Yeah, it's
it's
raining. It's
just
raining.
spray bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Yeah.
So is yeah, what are you thinking in terms of a feature? Or have you started
Yeah.
writing one, or do you know which one you want to write? Or
I mean, I've already somewhat outlined and taken a stab at a kind of a draft of Filmo. Um, and so that is my hope. But I also folks were have been I think you even mentioned this on our call is like thinking about heritage as a feature. Because I think it's folks have just been saying it's easier for you to actually get a feature made than like do this series thing. So I think I'm actually gonna also write heritage as a feature as opposed to an episodic, or maybe have both readily available. But yeah, I'm still thinking through that, but I don't know. You have thoughts on that?
what's the story of Heritage again?
Heritage is the story of the girl who on the night of her 29th birthday gets into the Uber that veers off the freeway into a virtual escape room where she has to outsmart these Nigerian deities, kind of to the liking of Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, Future.
Mm,
And they have her in this escape room where she has to uncover these clues and solve the escape room in 24 hours. Otherwise, she will vanish and become part of the room.
mm,
Um, and so if she solves all the clues, then she'll make it back to the Bay Area. In the real world, it's a surreal world that she's now in, and in the Bay, she's declared missing. Um, and so I'm wanting to build it out as an episodic because my thought was, okay, well, she gets into the escape room. All right, cool. She does the first, the first part of the escape room, it's hours 1 through 3. The next one is like hours 4 through 7. So my thought was like it could be split up so that it keeps the, attention rolling, anticipation.
yeah.
But I also, in terms of just getting stuff made, I could see why writing a feature would be a good idea.
Well, I like the series idea. I think trusting your instincts is good
Yeah.
because it does make me think of Backrooms, which I didn't watch all the online stuff for Backrooms, but I know how that started,
Hmm.
and it has a similar thing to it. It's just how do you shoot every episode is the hard part, right? Like
Right.
financially, physically,
Yeah.
how do you pull that off?
I'm
Um,
like,
and I
I'm
think
right.
I, I think
Boring.
after kind of reading them and talking about them, like yeah, Fillmore does seem like a good feature because it has this horror aspect and this monster aspect, and
Hmm.
that's something that even after like if you do a festival circuit, if praying it gets made for a reasonably low budget,
Hmm.
it's the festival circuit. That one people would still want to see
Hmm.
outside of a festival thing.
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
about monsters and horror, like those things are things that always sell, really.
Yeah. For sure.
But here's the thing to think about. Because the low budget of Fillmore still seems like it's in the millions, low millions,
Or millions. Yeah.
but it's in the millions. And Heritage sounds
Yeah.
like it has a small barrier to entry, just in terms of it being
Yeah.
a bit complex. And even the Nigerian deities is not like
Hmm.
a big selling point.
Hmm.
So I wonder, or maybe just something to think about, and like, if it is messing with your thought process, and just put it in the
No, I'm
back of
open.
the brain. But
Yeah.
just a lower budget feature,
Okay.
anything
Yeah.
between. And I know it's hard to think about it in terms of dollar amounts, but in
Yeah.
terms of
Thinking
between,
producer brain first and then
yeah, anything
yeah.
under like a half mil
Yeah.
just could be easier to pull off to introduce yourself to the world.
Sure. Yeah. I'll
Something,
definitely think through that because
yeah,
people wanted
something,
2% to be a feature. So
something like very local, something very local that,
I can
it's
shoot.
almost like the feature version of 2%, right? I don't know
Right.
what that
That's what I'm
is.
saying. Yeah.
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 And maybe
I'll
it's not she's stuck in the car the whole time. Maybe that's just a sequence
just part of it. Yeah.
uh, uh, of a longer version of that. But,
Hmm.
something with, her friend is having a baby. Wait, was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. They're on their way to the everybody's on the way to the baby shower and she's in charge of everything and she has the decorations, all this stuff. And
Be
her
some
friend is
bigger
like,
story around that. Or it even could be one day and maybe we go through the whole day a little bit more where she's got to pick up the balloons and there's how something
hmm
happens at the balloon shop and then she gotta,
hmm
I don't know. That's a creative challenge to figure out. And really, what
Yeah.
is the ending then? Is the car part the ending? Is the
Yeah.
car? I don't know. Anyway, we can do a lot of ideation here, but
Thank you.
maybe there's a 2% movie that's like,
Yeah.
oh, this could be made for 150 run and gun style.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I'll definitely think through that. I think that's valid for sure.
And the reason is, right, and I think people forget this or we overlook this, but in any profession, it's like, yeah, you have to earn that trust to do the next level thing. So, a lot of young screenwriters and young directors, like, yeah, I got like a $2 million feature, and it's like $2 million is a lot of money.
Hmm.
You
And
want,
who
and
are you?
every film is like its own small business,
Yeah.
and it's like, think if you were applying for a loan at a bank, and you were like, I need 2 million for this small business movie, and they'd be like, um, how do we know there's going to be any return on this? And you're like, well, it's a good script. But it's much stronger if you're like, well, I did a $100,000 movie that made four
X
hundred
amount.
thousand dollars. You know what I mean? Or played in these festivals. So this is my credibility is the work that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, that's fair. Yeah.
then
Ooh,
short films help
excited.
that too. I mean, if you have two or three successful short films, maybe you can get a million. You know what I mean? Depending on how
Right.
successful and where they were successful.
Hmm.
But it's hard to ask, especially when you're black. It's hard to ask for
Yep.
too
Hmm.
much money, whatever too much is. These are all arbitrary things.
Hmm.
But just in general, when you go out to investors and they're like, yeah, I'd like small features, $5 million, and they're like, this your first film? We don't even know if you're gonna make it through production. You know how hard production is.
Yeah.
And you might have all the confidence in the world, but
But they don't know.
they just
Yeah.
don't know you. Yeah, they just don't know you that
You got
well.
to build that trust and that credibility and yeah, reputation and all the things. So that's a very fair point of like, what is something that you can write that will still display your voice, portfolio build. It's at a lower price point that will, there's less barrier to entry. Like it's
Yeah,
something that is closer to touch, for you. And so that's really fair. I'm excited to think up. It's gonna be good.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's really it in terms of lesson and progression. Because like I said, you're doing all the right things for your
Mhm.
age, and
Thank you. Yeah.
from what you said, and your writing is clear, easy to follow, and interesting.
Hmm.
So it's like you just grow into that, further develop your voice, and those are just things that can only come with repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
You can't just wake up and be like, great.
Yeah,
Uh,
you
yeah.
can't you
Your
can't just
point.
talk through it,
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just like kind of comes to you gradually.
Hmm. Yeah.
The other thing I would say too is like just who are your partners in these?
Hmm.
Um, if you can have that really trustworthy person who likes to produce,
Yep. I've already started asking
yeah,
people.
because forming those partnerships, almost everybody with success, it's like even if they have different partners later, early on, it's like them and this person or them and these two people. Like there's always these tight relationships early on. So I think finding the right producer is probably the hardest thing to do, like by job. You know what I mean? Like I can get a different
Mm.
cinematographer every job. I can get a different editor every job. But if I'm having to find different producers every time, like
Yeah.
it also means that the relationship isn't that tight on any one project. So then I don't know, it's just like a mentality thing. And then they don't do all the work. They're like, I thought you were gonna do this. And it's like, oh, did you fill
Yeah.
this
Once
out?
you
And it's like
understand someone and workflow and
somebody
yeah,
who really
I like
wants it, who you vibe
relationships.
with. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely have I have my tribe and people that, I've mainly been helping to produce and like PA, do all the things,
Yeah.
since school. I've just been like getting my feet wet with like working on sets and like
Yeah.
working with people and collaborating. And so now that I'm really like, okay, well, back to me and my projects and the things that I,
Right.
have wanted to write. Now it's like, all right, now we making my film
Yeah. Turn your
finally.
attention here. Like
Um,
help
yeah,
me. I've been helping everybody
help
else.
me. Yes. Yes. So now I think those relationships are built. And so now it's just about me, like you said, the repetition and putting the things out there. So I think to your point, I think we're in a good place. So I'm definitely excited to keep like building and growing and all the things.
Great. I knew this would be a short
Mhm.
convo today. When I was thinking about it, I was like,
No, I
shoot
think
like
we
that.
all, no matter what stage we're at, I think we're all like, I mean, well, speaking for myself, I'm such a like student. Like I never feel like there's always something more for me to learn, or even if something you said I've heard before, it's a reminder, right? Because
Yeah.
if I wasn't already doing it, obviously I needed to be reminded anyway. So I think I think learning is a lifelong thing. So I'm never too I humble myself and it's always time to learn. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate your time and giving all these wonderful notes and advice. I'm excited to get to work. So, yeah,
Well, hit me up if you have further questions down the road.
for sure.
And definitely as you make things, I'll be in line to watch them. So put them
Yeah,
online, send me the link, or just put
for
them,
sure.
let people know on Instagram. I love to check out people's stuff. So
Okay, for sure. Yeah, we'll do. I appreciate you.
great.
Thank you.
Go ahead and stop this. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna stop the recording.
Cool.